So this is the Krishna Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami, and this is the last chapter. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. Is Anucheta 189. And just like all the other books, like the Bhagavatam and all those, they end up with the highest um, realization. This is Rādhā Is Supreme among the Gopīs. So I'll read the first few sentences and then I'll tell you when you can start reading. Can you see that screen pretty good?
Yeah, I've zoomed in on it and my screen's like blown up, so you can just leave it as it is, or you can make it bigger if you want. But yeah, I can see it good enough to
Okay.
read it.
Yeah, I've got it blown up too. I didn't know how what if you're still using your phone, so I wanted to make it a little bit bigger. So, okay, so the Radha is supreme among the gopis. The names of the principal gopis are mentioned in a dialogue between Sri Krishna and Yudhishthir in the context of Maladvadasi in the Uttara division of Bhavishya Purana. Quote, O king, know me from me the names of the chief gopis. They are Gopali, Palika, Danya, Vishaka, Dhyana Nistika, Radha, Anuradha, Somabha, Taraka, and Dasami. The 10th of these is also called Taraka. In the Dvarka Mahatmya section of the Prahlad Samhita from Skanda Purana, in the context of the discussion of the pond constructed by Mayadanava, only 8 names are mentioned. These are presented systematically in a series of statements, beginning with, quote, Sri Lalita said, followed by her statement, and then Shamala said, and so on. The 8 names are Lalita, Shamala, Danya, Vishaka, Radha, Shaivya, Padma, and Bhadra. You can read the next paragraph here.
According to the well-known Agama statement, accompanied by 1 billion beloved young women, it is understood that there were innumerable gopis. The names of these other gopis are to be known from tradition of scriptures. In this statement, because the number of 1 billion is otherwise inexplicable, it is to be understood that what is being pointed out here is the fact that the gopis are Krishna's supreme potencies, and even among the gopis who are direct embodiments of the topmost Madhurya or Madhura Prema, Sri Radhika is a manifestation of the highest essence of this love. The paramount excellence of Prema reaches its supreme zenith in her alone, as attested to in this volume, as will be shown in the Priti Sandarbha as well.
Priti Sandarbha is the next book. There's 5 Sandarbhas. So the Priti Sandarbha is the last one. I've done all the rest of them. Okay, I'll read the next three paragraph sentences here. In whomever this unique quality of love exists, all other potencies, such as majesty, Aishvarya, even if not regarded as being of special significance, follow into their very constitution. This is in accordance with the principle stated in the following verse. Quote, the celestial beings, along with all their virtues, become firmly established in one who has unalloyed devotion for Bhagavan. Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12. Thus, in Sri Vrindavan, Sri Radhika alone is Shyam Lakshmi. See, in the previous chapter before this one, it was talking about Sri Radhika in Dwarka, or I mean, Sri Rukmini Devi. In Dwarka, she is the Supreme Lakshmi in Dwarka. But in Vrindavan, Radhika is Shyam Lakshmi. A doubt is now raised in this regard. In Matsya Purana, we find the following statement made by Devi to Daksha. Now, Devi is Maya. Um, she's a portion or amsa of Maya. quote, I am Rukmini in Dwarka, Radha in the forests of Vrindavan, Devaki in Mathura, Parameshwari in Patala, Sita in Chitrakoot, and Vindhya Nivasini in Vindhyaschala. Matsya Purana 338b and 39. Okay, so you can read this paragraph here.
Here Devi, who is a portion, Amsa, of Maya, describes herself as non-different from Rukmini, Radha, Devaki, and Sita, who are direct manifestations, Vyuha, of the intrinsic potency, Swarup Shakti. This declaration is comparable to the statement Indra made about himself to King Pratardana. I am the life force. I am conscious self. Kaushitaki Upanishad 3:2. Or to the utterance made by the Brahman realized sage Vamadeva, I have become Manu and the sun. What's BAU?
Um, some Upanishad, I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, okay. These pronouncements were articulated while in the state of identity consciousness with Paramatma. They have been determined as valid in Vedanta Sutra in affirmations such as 1129 by virtue of the reasoning supplied in the sutra that follows, but the instruction imparted by Indra is justifiable on the basis of the immediate intuition of scriptural truth, as in the case of Vamadeva. BS 1130. Similarly, Davies' statement cited above is to be understood in a corresponding manner.
See, it's just that identity consciousness. It's not that she's saying that Maya is saying that she is Radha. She's just saying that, because Brahman is also associated or the self is part of Brahman or equal to Brahman, she's identifying herself with this higher self so that you don't confuse the two. Because we always have a misconception of who we are as human, as selves, but we have a misconception because we think we're the body. So that lower conception is destroyed when we actually understand that we're actually part and parcel of the Supreme Self. So that's what she's saying. She's not saying that she is Radha. She is identifying with that so that that could be, less intelligent people can understand that what identity is. I'll read these 4 points here. The scripture indeed illustrates the state of non-difference, abheda, between the supreme and its subordinate potencies in four ways. Number one, by considering the effect as one with its cause, as in, quote, all this is verily Brahman. Uh, and number two, by considering Paramatma and the individual living being, Jiva, as equal in terms of consciousness, such as in you are that. That is called Tattvamasi. That's a common Mayavadi term. They use that to justify that the self is equal to the supreme, but it's not. It's just equal in quality, but not in quantity. Number three, by regarding as non-different the support and the supported, as in you pervade everything, and so you are everything. Gita 1140. And number four, by the process of meditating upon oneself as identical with the supreme, Angrahopasana, as in I am Ram, Ramanatapani Upanishad 2:5. Just like, you can actually meditate on yourself, and because you are part and parcel of Krishna, you can become self-realized by understanding that you are part of Krishna. Krishna does that himself. I've seen a picture of Krishna meditating with, in a meditative pose in a lotus position with the Rudra, his fingers like that. And when he gets up in the morning, he does that every day when he's in Dwarka. He gets up in the morning, he meditates on himself. Because what else is he going to meditate on? Right, right. He's Krishna. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here also, okay, go ahead. You can read after four here, read the next three sentences.
Okay. Here also, in the case of Davies' above statement, one should infer the same conclusion. In particular, the fact that Sri Radha is Swayam Lakshmi is expressed in Sri Krishna's words to Baladev, as found in the Brihad Gautamiya Tantra. I am verily constituted of three ontological existences, or existence tattvas, namely being as the state of the effect, sattva, being as causal uh, efficiency, tattva, and being as transcendence, parattva. My beloved Radhika also embodies these three tattvas, existence tattvas. I am beyond primordial nature, prakriti, uh, and so too is she, who is the personification of my intrinsic potency, being established in a form of unalloyed being, Satvika Rupa. I am the conscious, complete Brahman. Being petitioned by Brahma, I appear in every yuga along with her and you in order to uproot the enemies of the Devas.
The word sattvam here refers to the existential state of coming into being as the effect, karyatvam. The word tattvam refers to primordial being as the basis of causation, karanatvam, and paratva refers to the state of transcendental being, which is beyond these two. Krishna says, quote, I am these three ontological existence, tattvas. Consequently, in the latter part of the same book, the following statement is made in the context of the discussion of Sri Radhika herself. Radhika is known as Devi, the supremely effulgent beauty. Krishna Mai, she who is pervaded by Krishna both within and without. Paradevata, the supreme worshipful goddess. Sarva Lakshmi Mai, the embodiment and existential ground of all Lakshmis. Sarvakanti, the transcendental seat of all beauty and luster. Sammohini, the enchantress of the all enchanting Krishna. And Para, the supreme transcendental reality, as the complete potency of the complete potent source. See, Krishna is known as Madana Mohini. He is known as the enchanter of Cupid. Mohini is another name for Cupid. And so Radharani is called Madana Mohana Mohini, the enchanter of the enchanter of Cupid. So, that's so Radharani is the supreme in Vrindavan. And she is essentially of the same character as Krishna. She has all of the ontological existence or truths within her as Krishna has within him. I mean, she is his, uh, Radha and Krishna are one and the same personality pretty much, but he separates himself. I mean, they're always separate individuals, but that's the way he enjoys with her, and she is the supreme. Uh, he's the supreme enjoyer, and she is the supreme enjoyed. And so, Lord Chaitanya, when he appeared on Earth, he couldn't figure out. I mean, he's God himself, right? So he tried to figure out what it is that Radha felt when what is what is it in him that attracts Radharani so much? And so he had to take birth in order to figure that out. Nobody can figure out women. Even God can't figure out women. So he had to take birth as Lord Chaitanya in order to to manifest that mood of Radharani to find out what it was in him that so enchanted her. And so Radha Krishna is Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahe Anya. They're the same personalities. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha and Krishna combined in the mood of Radharani, so that he can taste that rasa himself. That's why he primarily appeared in this world, so that he could experience that. And the secondary thing that he did was to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world through the Sankirtan movement. So that's just like a side project. But the real reason he came was so that he could taste Radharani's his own sweetness in the mood of Radharani. So that's why he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he's such a genius. He can do two things at once. He can do multiple things at once. But that's why Lord Chaitanya is our hero, because he's able to exhibit that. And, when Krishna appeared by himself, he said, surrender to me. That's the bottom line in the Bhagavad Gita. Abandon all varieties of religion, surrender to me. I'll protect you. Don't worry about it. And nobody understood, a lot of people didn't understand that. And so Lord Chaitanya had to come to show people exactly how to surrender to him. He appeared and he gave away pure love of God. When you surrender to God, eventually you'll understand how Krishna can bring you step by step to the highest realization. But through Lord Chaitanya, he just gives it away. Free, pure love of God. That's why he's the most magnificent incarnation of Godhead, uh, even more than Krishna himself, because uh, he freely gave what no other incarnation had ever offered before. The supreme prema of Radharani toward Krishna, and he just spread that around, and all his disciples, were following that tradition. And hopefully it'll last for another 10,000 years on this planet until everything falls apart, which it will. It's already falling apart. I don't know if you noticed, but this world kind of sucks right now. So you can read the next few sentences here.
A similar statement is found in the uh, Pari- Parishta Shruti. In the assembly of their intimate associates, Madhava Deva, the effulgent and playful one, shines brilliantly due to Radha, and Radhika shines brilliantly due to Madhava. The verb vibrajante means that they shine to the highest state of completion. This is the sense of the above Shruti statement. On this account, Radha's supremacy and supreme fortune among all the gopis is to be evidenced in regard to the description of her pond found in the Varaha Purana. The same idea is explicit in the following statement of Srimad Bhagavan Narayana, who is Hari, he who takes away the devotee's distress, and Ishvara, he who has the supreme power to fulfill his devotee's aspirations, has surely been propitiated by this girl, because Sri Govinda, being pleased with her, has abandoned all of us and carried her off to a secluded place. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:30-28. Continue. Intending all this, I have discovered the synthesis of such meaning in the preeminent first verse of the Bhagavad. For the interpretation of this verse that establishes the topmost supreme majesty, Maheshvarya, of Radha and Krishna, one should consult the explanations previously given. Here, however, we will discuss the meaning of the verse that establishes their feature of supreme mellifluousness, Param Madhuri, as follows in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1:1.
Yeah, Jiva Goswami. This is Jiva Goswami. He's explaining how, excuse me, how the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam 111, has the highest meaning of the this combination of the love affair between Radha and Krishna within that verse. Now, Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he gave a class on that verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 111. Uh, you know, and you know how long it took to give that class? One
Like,
month.
yeah.
He lectured on that class every day because it's so packed with meaning. And Jiva Goswami interpreted the word meaning of all these words in that first verse, and it's just really amazing how he could do that. I mean, he has to be empowered by Vyasadeva himself because Vyasadeva, uh, it says that he surely understood from Krishna himself that the first verse of the Bhagavatam is describing the loving relationship between Radha and Krishna. See, Radha and Krishna are always together. You can't have Radha without Krishna. So therefore, we always have to think about Krishna with Radharani and Radharani with Krishna. And they can't be separated. That's why we say Hare Krishna. Hare means Radharani. So when we're chanting that name, we're calling on Mother Hara to get the grace of the Supreme Father Hari or Krishna. So the two are always together, and we should always think of them in that way. What is mellifluousness? I gotta look that up. That's a
It
50
has to
cent
do with
word.
melody and
Oh, melody? Oh yeah, like a
yeah,
song.
yeah, it's like yeah, it's mellifluous is like it's really pleasing to hear or something, or it's
Oh, okay.
similar to melody. There's like the base word of melody and mellifluous, they're similar. They're,
Nice. Okay, well, you know more than I do then.
no,
Um,
I've looked that word up a couple times
oh
because of
really?
that yeah, the version of this Mahabharat that I'm reading is like Old English from like the 1800s, and so there's a lot of words that are used that are not commonly used in our regular
Yeah, yeah.
vocabulary.
I used to read Emerson and Thoreau, and they use a lot of words that are kind of archaic. I mean, they still an extent, but they don't use them that much anymore. You know,
Oh yeah, that's
23 skidoo or something like that.
a,
But let's see here. Mellifluousness. Okay. So he who continuously follows in pursuit, anu ayat, of Sri Radha, the direct embodiment of his own intrinsic potency of supreme bliss, and who is thus in the ever-present state of connection, asakta, with her, is known as Anyavaya, literally succession or connection. Here referring to Sri Krishna. See, this is why Prabhupada used to say, or even his spiritual master used to say, my dear brothers, once you get the grace of Radharani, then your life will be fulfilled. That's why Lord Prabhupada's father, he used to invite all these sadhus into his house. He said, please, have some prasadam and please bless my child that Radharani will be pleased with him.
oh really?
That was his goal, inviting all these sadhus and
Oh, that's really
into his house, even though they were like middle class, they didn't have that much money, but he was able to feed all these sadhus. But Prabhupada wasn't very impressed with all these sadhus. I mean, that's why he didn't want to even go see his friend when he was in college. He wanted to drag him to see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And for him, Prabhupada thought he was just another sadhu, a dime a dozen sadhu. He said, no, this guy is different. You have to come and see him. He dragged him. And he was very impressed because all these other sadhus that he was used to, they'd take prasadam in his house and then he'd go around the back of the house and smoke a beedi, an Indian cigarette. So he wasn't very impressed with the sadhus, but he was very impressed with Bhaktisiddhanta, and he tried. The first time he met him, he was wearing the cutty cloth of Gandhi, because he was a follower of Gandhi in 1930s. And Gandhi, he was like trying to gain independence from because England was um, occupying India at that time, and they were trying to monopolize all the industry in England, just like Trump wants to do with Canada right now. He wants Canada as the 51st state. He's like doing the same thing that England tried to do with India, or like Putin with Ukraine. They just expansionists, imperialists vision. They think everything is theirs, and if you conquer a country, then it's yours, you know.
Well,
So
what's
like a
interesting? I was reading the Manu Smriti, and it's the duty of a king to expand his kingdom, just like they're doing.
yeah. Well, the king,
There's a book.
actually, there was only one emperor of the entire world. The entire world was, at one point, this whole planet was called Bharat Varsh because Bharat was the king. Actually, that's what Modi wants to name India. He wants to name it Bharat. They've changed the back. They're going old school. Modi's kind of a nationalist. He wants to bring out the nationalist pride of India, and so he named Calcutta Kolkata, and he named Bombay Mumbai, and those are the old names. Back when I was there in 1988, Mumbai was called Bombay. So he wants
Interesting.
to name the whole country Bharat. But Bharat Varsh was indicative of the entire earth at one point because there was one king. Now, don't ask me how they did it. I know they didn't have cell phones back then, but maybe they had like, ravens or smoke signals or something, somehow or other there was one emperor that ran the entire world. There was a bunch of subordinate kings, and the kings would pay uh, the emperor of the earth, they'd go around the world and conquer all these subordinate kings. And that way they would expand their empire. But they were saintly kings. They wouldn't just, think that, the earth was theirs to conquer because there's all these resources. This is the disease of modern civilization. That's why we have wars. Wars are caused by thinking that these demonic kings think that these resources belong to me, and that's why they have wars. Because but nothing belongs to you. Not even our own bodies belong to us. They're Krishna's instruments, and they're meant to be used in his service, and therefore. And if you take more than is necessary for your own maintenance, or if any king expands his empire for his own use, for his own sense gratification, instead of for the sense gratification of Krishna, then he's a thief because nothing belongs to us. And that's what people in the modern era don't understand. They think, okay, well, I'm just a king. We're not, there's no such thing as a saintly king anymore. I mean, we used to have saintly kings in the Vedic Empire, but there is no
Um,
saintly king.
I haven't read the whole entire Manu Smriti, but I'm in the tenth book. I think there's like 12 of them.
You're reading the Manusmriti?
Well, I've read quite. I'm still kind of in the middle of it. I'm in the 10th book. I think there's 12 books of it, and I went and read through the duties of a king. And what's interesting is when I read that, I was like, wow, this sounds like generally what's going on in the world right now, like what kings are supposed to be doing, or expanding their kingdoms,
It's a
hiring
perverted
spies.
reflection.
Oh,
It's a
it's
perverted
but it's
reflection
interesting.
because
This is practical wisdom and practical knowledge on how to behave. What's interesting too is that the king's duties um, says it right in the Manusmriti somewhere when it talks about the householder's duties that they're practically the same. That even every householder is a king in
yeah,
his own. And this is, I
it's
think
like
this said in the Mahabharata too. But what's interesting is that it's prescribing uh, some pretty ruthless behavior and way to procure um, all your necessities for your household or your kingdom, and to defeat all your enemies and expand your kingdom. And they really, the duties that are set out, or those regulations, the kings are supposed to, they're supposed to conquer everybody. They're like it's strange to read it, because I was like, well, this seems like when people got a lot of issues with 9/11. Well, according to the Manu Samhita uh, and Mahabharat, it's okay to take out a whole country or a whole village for the country, or a whole household out of the village, or a family member out of the family, to
to save a
keep
whole country.
yeah. So, and then also that when it comes to what the king's doing and his activities, he can be totally secret, and he should be, and he shouldn't reveal anything. And so he should work in such a way that that he doesn't reveal anything until it's done. And if it's in the state's interest to not reveal information, he never should. It's a pretty his duties are
You
pretty
shouldn't tell any secrets unless it you can't reveal your just like a nobody can understand the mind of a saintly person. And we're talking about saintly kings here. We're not talking about demons.
right. But still, when it comes to the regulations of what the scriptures say, this is brutal stuff. Even people saintly would be people. What I would believe to be saintly in action would be sattvic, which is bitter at first, and it's the things that need to be done, like learning, or some of these activities that are prescribed are pretty ruthless, and they're for good reason. Like I'm wholly.
Well, you have
I
to
can
have law
see.
and order in the kingdom. You can't just have rogues and thieves running around in the kingdom and doing all kinds of nonsense. There has to be law and order, and
Oh yeah, and
violence is
the laws and
necessary.
order that this stuff that's prescribed in these Vedic scriptures are like there's this really beautiful, because I agree with it, and I've been a criminal in my activities my whole life. Like I grew up breaking into houses and stealing cars, and hanging out with the wrong people, and
Hmm.
um and so I've seen law, I've seen the justice side of it, of life. I've seen the negative and positive fruits from my actions. And
Uh-huh.
when I'm reading Vedic literature, I'm like constantly referencing my own life and what I've seen personally, and I'm like, yep, 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 like practically with everything I hear. And the
Yeah.
laws, this is really fascinating. What's interesting too is as I read this stuff, I can confirm its validity, but at the same time, being conscious of these rules, um, my personal life, I'm kind of behaving according to what I heard in the Manu Samhita and in the Mahabharat on how to behave, like to rule my kingdom, my household. I'm just kind of
Right.
following these general duties, and my life is blossoming. It's really really strange. Like it's
Well,
everything's
you're
like
becoming purified, so therefore you're gradually developing all these good or better habits. It's not that we conform to a certain set of rules. Like a Manusamhita, the Manusmriti is of the law books for mankind. The man is called man. What the reason it's called we're called men is because the Swayambhuva Manu was the first man. He was like the first progenitor on the earth. That's why we got the name man.
oh, it's interesting too. I've read these law books. They are inherently ingrained inside like the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Mahabharata,
Yeah,
and other literatures like the Vedic knowledge and the Dhamma Shastras, and then like the and the Shruti that I've heard, and the
right.
Smriti. It's all perfectly in line with each other. They're like in harmony. It's really
Yeah, I mean,
beautiful.
it's even Emerson read. I was a big fan of Emerson after I got out of high school. He read the Manusmriti. I mean,
Really.
that's amazing. And he said the Srimad Bhagavatam is to be read on one's knees.
Oh, nice.
And that, of course, that is the best book of all. I mean, all these law books and everything, I mean, they're all coming from Krishna. I mean, it totally contradicts everything that is in, the modern law books because, The
Well,
death
this is
penalty, for
interesting.
example, that
I've read some law, business law. Well, and from my experience, I'm like, also like I'm always reading these scriptures. I've read like so many scriptures from different faiths, and now I'm reading the Vedic scriptures. But a little while ago, I was reading some business law, and
Mhm.
well, I was reading the reasoning behind the United States law that I was reading was in line with like the like Dharma. Like they're like outlining these rules of conduct that are good for all. It's like that's the reasoning behind it. So it's like they're really like the laws are pretty um or what I was reading seemed pretty reasonable and like reasonable like it was in line with this with religious
Yeah, but you
understanding.
have to actually be in harmony with the Dharma, and which is actually coming from God. If you, I mean, you can make up your own laws too. I mean, they make a law and then they break it. It's just like Elon Musk, that the billionaire that's running the country right now. He wants to change the law so he can get paid. So he's got all his lawyers working so that he can get paid like $200 billion from his Tesla. And it's illegal, but if he changes the laws, then he can be paid. I mean, they have no end to their greed. And so they think everything is meant for their own aggrandizement. And that's what the demon thinks. He thinks this world is mine. Uh, I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I'm the richest man. I'm surrounded by aristocratic relatives, and I'll give some charity. And my enemies I will kill, and my other enemy I'll also kill. I'm perfect, powerful, and happy. And this way, they're deluded by complete, ignorance and illusion. And they have no idea of who they are, or what to do, what not to do, and they're not guided by the scripture. They're guided by their own impulses of selfish sense gratification. And so that's why, as Kali Yuga progresses, you'll have these kings, just like when Krishna had to appear, all these kings were developing their military, so Krishna had to come and kill them all. He rounded them all up through his potencies. He created a war between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. 600 million people died in that war. 600 million. That's a lot of people. That's like twice as many as the whole United States. And so he rounds up all the demons and kills them. Now, he doesn't have to come directly to do that, but sometimes he says, whenever and wherever there's decline in religious practice and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I come myself to annihilate all the miscreants and to establish Dharma. So Krishna has to correct things when they get out of hand to protect his devotees. Mostly he comes to enliven his devotees because his devotees want to see him and they want to interact with him. He comes himself for that reason. Otherwise, he could send a tidal wave or whatever. He could have killed all those soldiers, just by some, cataclysmic natural disturbance. But he comes in order to reestablish Dharma and to enliven his devotees, mostly himself. That's why he comes. But otherwise he doesn't really even have to do. He has multi-potencies, and so he can accomplish so many things without even having to come here. He can do it remotely. He's too busy enjoying in the spiritual world to actually bother. That's why they say that all these demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord, all these Ganesh and everybody, they don't come here anymore, right? They used to come here for sacrifices and stuff, but they don't come here because it's not even worth it. This material world is, they don't have the sacrifices that they used to back in the Vedic times. They very elaborate sacrifices, and they used to offer to the demigods. But the demigods don't even bother coming here, even though they still exist. All the demigods are there, but they don't come to this planet anymore. But when Krishna came, they came dressed in different forms. When Lord Chaitanya appeared, all the demigods appeared in like dressed as ordinary people and came in like incognito and gave offerings to the baby. So it's really amazing. Um, But I think we'll probably end in this. But that's really interesting that you've read so much. I wish I could have started reading as how long have you been a devotee? How long have you been reading?
I've been reading scriptures since I'm 38. I've been reading since I was 31. But when I was 31, I only read about three scriptures. I read the Dhammapada, the Bible. I read the Bible, the Tao Te Ching, and the Dhammapada for about 4 years or so, and then I came across Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam,
When
Ramayana,
did
and
you
then the
start
Vedic.
reading Prabhupada's books?
I read I well at first I read the an off I read the Upanishads, and after I was like, oh my God, this is Hindu stuff. I gotta read more of this because I was like convinced. This
Yeah,
made
yeah.
me convinced
There's a lot of
God's
really good
really real.
Upanishads, you know. Have you read the let's
I read the
see,
10 out of the 12
Tatatriya
principal ones.
Upanishad? Tatatriya Upanishad. There's some really good
Yeah,
Samkhya Upanishads.
there's 12 that are like there's this one book I read the Kata Upanishad, made my heart stop. And
Oh yeah.
convinced me that God's real. And I was like, man, I really need to really look into this stuff. So I was like, I'll read Bhagavad Gita. Someone had mentioned to read something, read it before. I just turned it down for some reason. But when I finally read that, I read this version from Barnes and Noble, and the wording's kind of funky. But then I was like, well, I want to hear this as an audiobook all the time because I was doing that with the other scriptures. I was listening to the audiobook over
Oh
and
yeah,
over
that's why how you met me.
all the time.
Somebody you say you're complaining on online that you didn't know any but audiobooks, and then
Yeah,
somebody
we need
referred
more
me to
audiobooks.
you.
Yeah,
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 I got a bunch of audiobooks.
yeah. That's exactly. So I wanted to listen to the audiobook because I wanted to hear it a bunch, and
Yeah,
then
yeah. I mean, that's the key. The key is to hear from devotees. If you're going to
so I
hear
heard.
Shabda Brahman, it's the that's how you get knowledge. Just it says in the Gita, just try to approach a bona fide spiritual master, hear from him submissively, render service, and the spiritual master can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So
That's what
it's
I feel. All the books I read are like that, because they're and people, but like these scriptures are something else. Just hearing the
Yeah,
stories,
there's
the
so many
knowledge.
stories. I mean, that's why Veda Vyas wrote all this. Like the Mahabharata and these kind of books were meant for. I mean, the Upanishads they're a little bit advanced. They're more philosophical, but like
Yeah, but they're really beautiful too. Like there's this beautiful
yeah,
knowledge.
they are really beautiful philosophical treatises, but the Mahabharata is more attractive to people like ordinary people that like want to get involved with like conflict and politics and romance and stuff like that. Everything's in
Yeah, I know. I
the
could go on
Mahabharata
about.
and also Krishna's pastimes. I mean, Krishna's pastime. I mean, who can enjoy more than Krishna? He has 16,000 wives. I mean, he has Dwarka. Dwarka is like unbelievable place. If you read the last canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he just talks about how Krishna is his place in Dwarka is has so much opulence. It's just unbelievable.
My
You know,
favorite part about him being in Dwarka is him playing with his children and loving his wives in
I
like
mean, yeah, I mean when
a
Narada Muni
marvel
came down,
loving them fashion. I love it. I love that.
Narada Muni came down. He wanted to check out what Krishna was doing, right? And so he comes down and he checks out one palace. He had 16,000 palaces and 16,000 queens. I mean, I can't even take care of myself, what to speak of like hardly I can take care of one wife, but he had 16,000 queens. And so Narada Muni came down there and visited the first one. Krishna was playing with his kids or something, and then he went to the next place, Krishna offered him a seat and gave him all kinds of respect. And then he went to the next place and it was a different time of day even. It was like getting up in the morning instead of in the other prowess. It was like, see, time and space don't have any meaning in the spiritual world, And so he'd be doing different things at different times of the day. and none of the queens knew what the other queen. They were thinking, well, Krishna's always here. I must be his favorite queen. They knew there were other queens, but each one was thinking, I'm the special one, because Krishna only he's all here all the time. And so she was thinking that he was like totally attached to her. But Narada Muni would be, he would be doing different things in each palace. I mean, just like if you're a mystic yogi, you can separate yourself and do different things, but it's like kind of like a mirrored reflection. It's like you can divide yourself into things, but you can't do different things at once. Krishna can do that though. He could have billions of queens if he wanted to, but he had 16,000 just because he wanted to show that he's God and you're not. That's what that's the difference between Krishna and us, because he can do all that stuff and we can't. I mean, that's
I'm
the
really
great.
liking I'm reading the Mahabharata and I'm hearing a lot from Krishna. Him talking to the Pandavas, talking to the other kings. There's so much going on between him and the and he's a big part of the Mahabharata. Like
Yeah, I mean, everything is revolving around Krishna, and the Mahabharata is meant for it's like these stories are just so intriguing because they're just interesting, and anything that has to do with Krishna. I mean, Prabhupada wrote all these books because everybody has a tendency to understand what stories.
yeah, you
And
saying that? I like the stories more than I like the knowledge. Like at
yeah,
first I
well,
was
then the
just into
stories
knowledge,
are
but
like
now I like the
you have
stories
the
more.
intervention interaction between the Pandavas. I mean, Krishna was the Pandavas' servant. Can you imagine that? I mean, they used to just hang out with him and eat with him and sleep with him, and like they would be. And Krishna even actually volunteered to be Arjuna's charioteer. I mean, how fortunate were the Pandavas?
Well, you know that one time when they're about to go to war with Duryodhan, Duryodhan rushes to Dwarka to see Krishna, and he gets
Right.
there right before Arjun, and Krishna's sleeping, and he sits by him, and Krishna wakes up. He sees Arjun first, so he looks at Arjuna first. That's some really cool, like, uh,
Coincidence.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really sweet to read that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Krishna is the sweetest, I'll tell you. But everything that has to do with Krishna is just purifying. And so if we just keep on hearing these stories, we develop a taste, and the taste after a while get attached to hearing. And if as the Bhagavatam says, whatever your occupational duty, whatever you're doing, unless you develop an attraction to hear the message of Krishna, whether it's stories or philosophy or whatever it is, unless you develop that attraction, it's useless, a useless
Hmm.
waste of time. But if it helps you develop attraction for Krishna's personality, his name form, his devotees, anything to do with Krishna, then it's actually for your betterment. Anything else, like Krishna gives all the different aspects of knowledge, and everything else is just ignorance.
Yeah, he
So
lays it all out. He says everything, and then
yeah,
there's the
Krishna
stories.
is
The
everything.
stories are
He is
beautiful.
everything. He is everything. So if you understand who Krishna is and interact with him, he's perfect. I mean, it's very difficult to think that that you could have a better idea than Srila Vyasadeva or Krishna.
Right,
If you think
right.
you're more smart than those guys, you're pretty puffed up.
Right. And you know what I've been thinking lately because I'm reading the Mahabharata and what a vast book, right? And all the Vedic lore, all the beautiful stories, and even like this intriguing like drama between everyone. What an amazing literature that it's just amazing that it exists. It's amazing. I'm like wondering when it was written down, the actual person, Vyas, who wrote this book, was there like a party? Are they like, did they celebrate? Did they have
They have
like,
a book
a good
tour.
time? Like, because like for real, like this is a really, really outstanding, crazy book. I've never heard anything like it, and
Right.
I listened to the
I mean,
whole thing at.
he's a literary incarnation of God. He's an incarnation of God, Vyasadeva. I mean, and the thing is, even then, he wasn't perfect when he started to write. He wrote all the Vedas, the four Atharva Veda, Samaveda, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and he wasn't satisfied. And then he was wondering, what the hell? I've read all these things, all these, prescriptions for human beings to follow, but he wasn't really satisfied. And so Narada Muni came to his ashram and he said, he detected why he wasn't satisfied. You should talk about Krishna. You should actually write about the glories of Krishna. And so he took that to heart, and he was empowered by Narada Muni to actually write of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is the pinnacle of, I mean, it's the cream of all the Vedas. The Srimad
It's
Bhagavatam,
interesting.
best book ever.
There's in the Mahabharata, as I'm reading it, I'm hearing bits and pieces of Krishna's pastimes. Just
Yeah.
bits and pieces of it, like that mention his pastimes uh from like what's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but not like there's not really long descriptions that describing very much, but like little hints and stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, like there's a the Padma Purana also. I read the entire Padma Purana. The Bhagavatam has got 18,000 verses. The Padma Purana's got 50,000 verses.
Jeez.
And there's no purport, so it takes like half the amount of time that the Bhagavatam takes. But Adi Purusha, my Ukrainian audiobook mentor, he said, I've only known one person. I know one person that's read the entire Padma Purana. He said, I want you to read it because if it's in audiobook form, then it'll be a great contribution to devotees society. And so he
Yeah,
said,
really,
you read that.
really
And so
doing
I
it.
said, sure, I'll read anything, give it to me. Like when I was reading Prabhupada's books, I was running out of books to read, and I thought, oh my God, what am I going to read next? I was like a genie out of the bottle, I got to read something. And so then I thought, oh yeah, there's a Mahabharata, there's a Ramayana, and then I thought, oh, wait a minute, there's the Goswami literature. And I'm
Yeah, there's a
old, I'm
lot.
like 69 years old, and I thought, okay, I'm good. I'll be reading for the rest of my life, and I want to die reading. That's what I want to do. I just want to die in
Like
my chair, and then so I don't. My other friend, I used to go traveling around the United States collecting for the New Vrindavan, and my friend Adi Purushi, I used to read to him while he was driving, so he'd keep awake, and he said, if you just go on reading like this, you'll go back to Godhead. And so I kind of took that to heart. But if there were so
yeah, you
many
know what? Because
decades that I wasn't really.
there's so many scriptures say whoever reads this, whoever hears this,
Oh
whoever
yeah,
you know,
so many
whoever.
benedictions in the scriptures that
Yeah, and if you read them, then you're getting those benedictions, and there's a lot of them too. Because I read
there's
them,
a lot.
you read
Yeah,
way
I
more
mean,
than me, and I read a bunch of them. And every one of these Vedic scriptures lays down
yeah,
some
but even
benediction.
the association of the devotees also is really really important.
This
Just
was
like
it says two things in all the scriptures that whoever hears this and whoever recites this. And
right,
the
yeah.
reciting, they seem to like give more
Yeah,
people, they give
Shukadev
more
Goswami,
benefit to
he
the
spoke
reciter.
it, and Maharaj Parikshit, he heard it. And so hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet, like Lakshmi up in the Vaikuntha planets, she's serving Krishna's feet. And so every single process of devotional service, any one of them or all of them, just like there was one king who was very famous as performing all of them. Like he would try to touch the devotees, he would taste the prasadam, he would smell the flowers, he'd use all of his senses in service of Krishna. He'd use his feet to walk to the temple, and uh, and so all of these activities are our process: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshiping the lotus feet, praying, becoming a friend, surrendering everything. These are different processes of devotional service, and you can do one of them or you can do all of them. But even one of them can lead you to the goal.
The,
And
the, all the reading I'm doing, uh, they stress in the purports and in all the scriptures that Shravanam Kirtanam is the highest.
yeah,
Shravanam Kirtanam.
especially Kirtanam. especially Shravanam. Hearing is first. Shravanam Kirtanam, because that's the first on the list. So hearing is first, and then you chant, and then all the rest of them. But hearing is first. First, you hear from a devotee, and it says even if you lava matra, lava is 11th of a second. Lava matra, if you are associated with the devotee for even an 11th of a second, you can actually, and Prabhupada had experience with that. And he would meet with somebody like at an airport, and he'd tell him, "Oh, okay, why don't you start a temple in, Kathmandu or something like that?" And the guy would do it, and just from a brief encounter with Prabhupada, a person would become empowered to do wonderful things. And that's the way
Yeah.
Lord Chaitanya spread the Christian consciousness all over the subcontinent of India. He would just go everywhere, and when anybody saw him, even from a distance, like ladies, they couldn't go up personally up to him or talk to him at all. But they just loved to see his form and hear him and watch him dance, and everybody was like blown away by the beautiful form of Lord Chaitanya. And whoever came in contact with him, they would come and meet somebody else, and then it would just like be a chain reaction throughout the village. And so Lord Chaitanya said, you know, I want this Christian consciousness, this chanting of the holy name, to spread to every town and village on the planet. And it never went beyond the subcontinent of India until Prabhupada came here, and now it's like all over the world. But we just have to keep it going. If it's supposed to last for another 10,000 years, and then Kali Yuga will take over, and then for the next 427,000 years, it'll be going downhill from there. And then people will be like 4 feet tall, and they'll eat their own children at the end. That's the end of Kali Yuga. And then Krishna will come in the form of Kali and just kill everybody. He'll kill all the demonic kings. And there's actually people in India right now that are waiting for the Kalki to come. They're living in a village called Shambhala. Those personalities are living now, and they'll live for another 427,000 years until Kalki comes, and then they'll start a whole nother golden age. That's the time scales of Vedic, the cosmology of the chronology of the Vedas is amazing. It blew my mind when I first like thought of it. Like Brahma, he lives for 311 trillion years with a T. And he's like halfway done, right now. He's lived for 150 trillion years, and when he saw Krishna, he was about, halfway through his life of 100 years in Brahma's time span. And so he saw Krishna and playing with his cowherd boys, and he stole his cowherd boyfriends and his cows and put them in the cave. And then Krishna revealed himself, and Lord Brahma thought to himself, I've wasted half my life. He was having a midlife crisis. He was 150 trillion years old, and he thought, I could have taken birth as cowherd boy. I've wasted half of my life. And so it's like that kind of time scale is just like, so he actually went to Navadvip, Brahma did, and he prayed to Lord Chaitanya because he knew Lord Chaitanya would appear in Navadvip. And he said, he prayed, and the Lord Chaitanya came to him and said, okay, what Brahma, what do you want? And he said, well, I know you're going to take birth here in Navadvip pretty soon, and I want to be a part of your entourage there. I want to take part in your pastimes. He said, okay, you'll take birth as a Muslim in my pastimes. You'll be known for chanting the holy name of Krishna. He was Haridas Thakur. And so he said, I'm going to make all the other demigods drunk with the holy name, and you'll be there. And then he left, and then Brahma just fell down the ground and started crying and passed out. And so that's just that's what Varshana Maharaj, she told that pastime about, him being, wasting his life. He thought he was like a big creator. He created the universe, but he was thinking he was wasting his time. because he could have taken birth as a cowherd boy. So he wanted to be take part in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes at least, you know. But I thought that was pretty amazing. Anyway, I think we should probably end it here. We've talked for an hour, but it was pretty enlivening. We're not going to
Well, thanks
get
for
through
having
this
me.
whole thing because this, I just read this. If you want to read the rest or hear the rest of it, um, I read the whole thing today. It's over an hour long, this chapter, the last chapter. It's pretty
Oh,
sweet.
really? Yeah, what we were reading is really sweet. I really appreciate you having me and doing this with me. I need this
Yeah,
kind of stuff in
no
my life.
problem. I like to talk about Krishna. I actually talk too much when I'm driving for Uber. I drive for Uber and I invite people to our program, our Krishna Kirtan Center, and I say it's a different kind of yoga. Instead, it's like mantra yoga, not like a bunch of people twisting themselves up into pretzels, you know. It's actually kind of fun. It's like a drum circle. And I said, "Have you ever heard of a drum circle?" And they said, "No, I've never heard of that." And I said, "That's a hippie thing, you know. I'm a hippie. I'm an old hippie, so I know about hippie shit." So that's a bunch of hippies sitting around banging on drums, making too much noise, and smoking weed. And we do that, except we don't have to smoke weed because we're already having fun. We have way too much fun. It's more fun than you've ever had in Pittsburgh, believe me. And so I invite them. I say it's free. I tell them it's free is my favorite price because, I don't make that much money. I'm semi-retired, And because I just work whenever I want to. My wife drives around like I do. She's a home health nurse. So she drives all over town, but she works like 10 or 12 hours a day. I couldn't do that because I'm a lazy bum. I just work whenever I want. That's the beauty of Uber. And so I tell people that I'm a lazy bum and I'm also a cheap bastard because you have to be both. If you're a lazy bum, you have to also be very cheap. And so free is my favorite price. So I invite them to our Prasadam program. We have our yoga process is threefold. Chanting, that's the drum circle part. Dancing, everybody starts dancing in our Kirtan Center. Everybody starts dancing because it's just enlivening. You can't not dance. And then feasting, we have free vegetarian feast, and it's good food too. So what's not to like about that? And so I invite them, and I give them a cookie. I make my own. I make cookies and pass them out, just as a prasadam. And then I invite them to the thing. And then sometimes I talk about, if they seem open, I have a 4K screen in the back of my Uber, just like, the kids, they have like a screen to watch cartoons when you're on a long trip. I have a screen too, but it's hooked up to the sound system of the car, and it's also a 4K screen, so it's really high resolution. And so I play them a video, or maybe Prabhupada. I make slideshow videos and try to introduce them to Krishna consciousness, and I talk to them. And I've gotten complaints from people that I talk too much.
Yeah, I talk too much too.
Yeah, so it's like, but at least I'm trying to talk about stuff that's meaningful. I talk about Krishna. I used to be involved in politics when I was in the 2000s. I was the Move On director of Greater Pittsburgh, and I was involved in activism and stuff. And then I would complain to my wife though because I'd see these talk shows, with like everybody arguing with each other. And I say, why don't they talk about Krishna? And my wife would just start laughing at me. They're not going to talk about Krishna because they're all just like interested in politics and stuff and fighting. But then I became an inactivist. I was an activist and then I was an inactivist. But I learned a lot of stuff about organizing for spiritual, I took that knowledge and now I try to just, try to get people to come to our programs and stuff and, involved in Lord Chaitanya's activism. I mean, he's the original activist. Kazi
Yeah.
broke the Madanga drum. We had our Gopīs ceremony program, and they did a play where Lord Chaitanya and all his devotees were out chanting, and then the Kazi came and broke the Mridanga drum because people were complaining. They're making too much noise. These Hare Krishnas with their boom booms and their ding dings. It was funny, we used to work these events, and I was in Minneapolis once, and we got nipped at this one event. It was like a football game, I think, in downtown Minneapolis. And he said, I've seen you guys before. You come out here with your boom booms and your ding dings. You know, the Mridangas and the cartels, and they threw us out, But Kazi, he broke the Mridanga and then he said, he started beating up the devotees and devotees complained to Lord Chaitanya and the Lord Chaitanya said, okay, we're going to organize a mass resistance, a civil disobedience. And so he got like thousands of devotees with torches and Mridangas and they all came up to the Kazi's house and they're ripping up the garden. They were just like causing all kinds of destruction. They were pissed, because they wanted to chant. And and the Kazi was hiding in his house. But Lord
I think
Chaitanya
even Lord Chaitanya said that he wanted him to die or kill him, and one of his devotees were like, "No, you're not supposed to do that," and they didn't kill him.
well, no, he was very
He
amenable to
was
they
allowed to do
actually
it.
interacted as if they were uncle. You say he was kind of related to Vishwanath, to his father, and so he said, "You're my uncle. I'm your nephew." And he said, "Well, you should invite your nephew into the house and we should have a discussion." So he talked about the Quran and the different things in scripture. He's talking about meat eating and actually he melted his heart because Lord Chaitanya is so humble. He just and he wasn't afraid anymore when he was talking to Lord Chaitanya, even though all of his followers were really pissed. I mean, they ripped up his whole garden. I mean, they pretty destroyed his property. But anyway, Lord Chaitanya got him to say, I don't want you to, because he actually had a dream the night before where Lord Nrsingadev pounced on his chest and started ripping him apart. And when he woke up, he saw some scratches on his chest. And so he thought, okay, I better do what this guy says. I know you're that Lord Nrsingadev. You're the same personality. And so, he had to like obey what he told him. He said, don't disturb the devotees, anymore. And so he made an edict. The Kazi made an edict. Don't disturb any devotees who are chanting Hare Krishna. Let them do it. And so he became a saint. And actually all the Hindus in that area, we have a tomb in the Kazi, and the Hindus go and pay obeisances to him because he actually became a follower of Lord Chaitanya.
Hmm.
That's the way to do it. It's humility. Humility is the key. Anyway, it's very nice talking, and
Yeah, nice talking to you.
we'll
Hare
continue
Krishna.
this discussion with the Pretty Sandarbha. That's the Bhakti Sandarbha. That's the highest Sandarbha, also by Jiva Goswami. He's a pretty awesome philosopher,
Hmm.
direct disciple of Rupa Goswami. Of course, he's the guru of all the Goswamis. We're all supposed to be Rupa Nugas, which followers of Rupa Goswami. So these
Yeah.
old Goswamis are just, they know Lord Chaitanya's inner mission. So, we're all followers of them because without them, we can't understand who Lord Chaitanya is, and we have to follow in their footsteps, and then we'll be successful and our hearts will be purified and we'll go back to Godhead.
Hmm.
So thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next week, hopefully.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.